Max, you just leaving me alone with these hostile people?
No, excuse me, Mike.
What is the procedure? All right, since nobody knows, it was nice. I think we start out by me announcing myself. I am possibly one of the most wonderful people I know. And now, they can hear me.
But I want to hear you clearly.
What?
I want to hear you louder. Loud.
Excuse me. Can you hear me back there? Yeah.
Yes. Traitors.
So, Max tells me, that's Max, he's the guy who tells me where to go and what to do. And I never know.
That's a lie. I get a phone call from the wife every 10 minutes and she tells me.
He also mumbles. I couldn't understand a word you said. He said I had to come here for a meet and greet. So I figured that 2 or 3 people say hello to him and get the hell out of there. All of a sudden we have a crowd.
Yeah, that's what I told the other guy.
And I'm standing here not knowing what to do. So you're going to help me. You're going to tell me what to do. But I think the first thing is to answer questions. Am I right, Max?
What's that?
Is the first thing to answer questions?
If that's what you want.
Now, if they don't have any questions, you'll see a grown man die in front of you. I'll be sitting here, standing here, nobody will ask a question. So the most important thing for you to do is think of a question to ask me. Even if it's a dumb question, don't worry, I'll give you a dumb answer. And then after we finish the questions,
I'll sign a few things.
I'll sign a few things. Now, here's the point. If you're eager for me to sign a few things, keep the questions short so we can get rid of that thing real fast. We'll do the signing, and what comes after the signing, Max?
Photos.
Then we take photos. Whether you want it or not, you have to take a photo with me. You can tear it up later, that's okay. But to make Max happy, we have to have a photo. So this is the order of things. You're going to ask me questions, hopefully something that I can answer. Then we're going to have a signing. What am I going to sign?
Body parts.
Body parts. Would you leave the room? Then we're going to have some photos, and then your ordeal will be over, and you can go and do what you want, but I'm still stuck at the convention till 12. And that's it. So I am ready for the first question. Right there. No, you got to understand, I don't hear as well as I used to, so you got to talk even louder than I do. Go ahead.
What was the first thing that made you to want to do what you have done as far as give us these amazing superheroes that I'm a major fan of?
What made me want to do what I'm doing that you're an amazing fan of, right?
Yeah.
I would have liked it better if you started with I'm an amazing fan. That's the part I like best with the question. As far as what made me do what I do, and I assume you mean working in the comic business for so many years, I guess my motivation was greed. I wanted to make a living. And it was a job I got. I never thought I'd get into the comic book business. I answered an ad. There was an assistant wanted in a publishing house. And they published all kind of magazines, so-called men's magazines, movie magazines, that type of thing. And they also had some comic books, mainly Captain America, which had just started by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. So I went up to apply for this assistant's job. I was about 17 and a half years old. And they threw me in with Simon and Kirby, and they said, you're going to assist them. I had never been up to a comic book company before. I had read Captain America. It had just started, and I thought it was real good. So my job was not a very impressive one. In those days, the artists dipped their pen in inkwells. And one of my jobs was to make sure that I spilled in enough ink every morning. I would go down and buy them lunch at the drugstore, and I would erase the pages when they were finished working on the pages. But it paid me a little salary, and things were tough in those days. And then they left. Joe and Jack left for some reason. And it had been a very small department. It was just Jack, Joe, and me. So the publisher, whose name was Martin said to me, do you think you could act as, well, they were the editor, the art director, and they were the writers. He said, could you be the writer, editor, and art director until I find a real adult? He was desperate because I was the only guy there. I said, well, I'll try. And apparently he forgot about it. He never found anybody else, but I was stuck with that job ever since. And, you know, when you're 17 and a half, what do you know? I said, I can do it, sure. So I had to do it. And I was lucky. We had the greatest artists working. I was able to hire some terrific artists. And then later Kirby came back. And then we had Kirby and Ditko and John Buscema and John Romita and Gene Colan and Gil Kane. And I felt I could conquer the world. And Marvel did. Now that's probably the longest answer you've ever gotten to a question. Forgive me for going on that way. Yes, sir.
Stan, which comic book or figure do you think put you over the top, made you a rich man?
Which comic book or figure put me over the top, put us over the top?
Yes.
I would think Spider-Man probably was the big one, you know? The Fantastic Four did very well, and the X-Men did well, and the Hulk did well in the beginning, but when Spider-Man came out, it sold so well. That was the one. That all over the world, people started knowing about Spider-Man. Yes, sir.
What is your favorite plot line and your most hated plot that you did?
My favorite plot line? Gosh, there's so many of them. Maybe the thing that college kids refer to as the Galactic Trilogy. The one about Galactus coming to Earth and the Fantastic Four with the Silver Surfer. I really like that plot line. I do have one I didn't like, and I can't tell you what it is because I don't know what it was, but we had to turn out a book very quickly for, I think it was the Fantastic Four. You know, we had publishing dates when the book had to go to a printer at a certain date. And if it didn't get there at that date, if we didn't have the artwork finished, our publisher, Martin, would have had to pay for the printing anyway, because that time had been reserved at the printing press. So all of a sudden we found that the Fantastic Four, it had only like 2 weeks to get to the printer, and it usually takes a month to do a book. So I had to think of something fast, and I came up with a villain called Diablo. I thought that was a great villain's name. And I said to Jack, let's get a villain called Diablo and we'll do this. I don't remember what I said he should do. And Jack drew something, and that was the book. We sent it to the printer, and I realized it wasn't a good story, and I can't even remember now what the story was. That's how bad it probably was. And I've never seen the book since. I never went back and found that story. I didn't particularly want to. So I can't say it's the one story I don't like, because I don't know what the story is. But if I read it, I know I wouldn't like it. So there you go. Back there. Yeah, last guy, right back there.
All right. Do you feel that Marvel Comics was the cause of the comic?
Wait, can't hear you.
Sorry. Do you feel that Marvel Comics was the cause of the comic book industry being saved after the Redskins?
After what?
Do you feel that Marvel saved the comic book industry after the Redskins?
I missed the last 2 words.
After the what?
Red Scare.
The Red Scare. No, I don't think Marvel saved the comic industry after the Red. I'm not even sure what we had to do with the Red Scare. I think Marvel, of course, is the greatest company. I think it saved the whole world, if you want to ask me. But no, the Red Scare, we've had so many scares. The Red Scare was one of them. There was a time when every time we needed a villain and couldn't think of something, we made him a communist. It made it very easy. I don't think Marvel really saved the world, to be honest with you. I wish Marvel could have done more. The one thing that we did, we got a lot of readers, a lot of fans, and the thing I'm proudest of, we're known all over the world. Our books sell in every country, and they do pretty well. And the competition was good too. You know, I make fun of them very often, but the guys at DC were equally talented. They used to work, some of them would come to work for us. Sometimes our guys would work for DC. The guy at the time I was there, who was the editor of DC, a fellow named Carmine Infantino, he and I were friends. To the public, we acted as if we were deadly enemies. But we used to, every couple of weeks, we'd meet and have drinks together and kid around and bring some of the people from the staff. It was all, the people in the comic book industry are very friendly with each other. And but I wouldn't say we've been saving the world. I wish we could. Yes, sir.
You're known as like a philosopher. Who inspired you to be a philosopher? Your mom, your dad, you know?
Say that again.
Your philosophies.
My philosophy?
Yeah, like your philosophies. Who inspired you to do that? Your mom, your dad, you know?
I don't know. I'm not even sure I know what my philosophy is. Well, my mom and dad obviously must have had an influence on me. But they never, they weren't the kind of people who discussed philosophy. It was usually, how do we get money to pay the rent? I guess maybe the books I read, mostly, and I can't tell you which ones influenced me, because I read everything. So I read the Hardy Boys and Bomba the Jungle Boy and Tarzan, and I also read Dickens and Emile Zola, and I read whatever I could get my hands on, you know, and science fiction and everything. I think all of us, whatever our philosophy is, it's caused by every year that we live and all the things that we see and hear and read. And again, very honestly, I'm not sure what my philosophy is. Yes, sir.
You never hear that you actually ever get angry about anything. But I remember reading an interview about the Incredible Hulk Daredevil television. And you were described as being angry about how they did Daredevil.
Oh, well, that's interesting. I was mostly angry about how they did the Spider-Man television series, the live-action one. I don't know if any of you saw it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they tried their best, but I felt they gave Peter Parker no personality. He was just a guy who walked around with a camera, and there'd be a crime committed or something, so he turned into Spider-Man and he'd go fight the villain. But it didn't have any of the human interest or the personality or characterization that I thought we put in the comic books. So I called a meeting, and not that I was that powerful in those days, but I managed to, I got my publisher to call the meeting, really. I think it was at CBS. And we sat around a big table, and the writers were there, and the director of the show was there, and a number of other, and the executive from CBS was there. And I told them what I thought was wrong with the show. And I'm sure in their mind they were thinking, who is this comic book writer to tell us what's wrong with our television show? This was years ago. And when I was through talking, the guy from CBS said, "Thank you very much, Mr. Lee," and the meeting was over, and that was it. And then the next day, I got a letter from the director of the show, and he said, "I just want to tell you, I heard your objections, but there's no way that I can fly by the seat of Stan Lee's pants," which was not a nice letter. That was the end of it. And a few weeks later, the show was canceled. So, but I got a little bit angry, but no, I don't really get all that mad. There's not much to get mad about. I keep so busy, you know, and people are usually so nice to us. In this business, we have the nicest people in the world. I mean, artists and writers, directors, and they're the greatest people in the world, and they're all cooperative, and they help each other. So I don't get mad very much. Sometimes I get mad at our dogs. We got one dog we can't housebroken. We've had this dog for 7, 8 years, and he's still not housebroken. You want to talk about getting mad? Let's see, who over here?
Okay. In the future, I'm hoping to work for Marvel. I do like to write my own storylines. I have a prototype right here. So, what advice would you give me?
What is what?
What advice would you give me?
What is right for the business?
No, no,
What
no.
advice would you give him?
Oh, what advice would I
he
give
wants
you to
get
work for Marvel?
Yeah.
He's already
Well,
taken
I
a
don't
good step.
think it would be any difference than working for any company. See, I'm not really at the Marvel offices anymore. They're in New York. I'm more like almost a consultant. And I have my own company called POW Entertainment. But I still do publicity and things for Marvel, but I don't go to the offices and I don't have anything to do with their day-to-day operation. But, which is a long introduction to what I want to tell you. But I don't think it's much different working for Marvel than any company. Marvel hires artists, they hire writers, and they hire people who work on computers to do coloring and things like that. They look for the best writers they can find, the best artists they can find, and the best computer people. Every company in the world, no matter what it does, it looks for the best people it can find to do that work. So if, for example, you want to be a writer for Marvel, you've got to make sure that you're a damn good writer, because they have their pick. I mean, there are people who write novels, who write screenplays and so television shows, and they all want to work for Marvel. Because what has happened is, it wasn't this way years ago, but now if a comic book does very well, there's always the chance it'll turn into a movie. And the guy who wrote the comic book may get a chance to write the movie and so forth. So that's why some of the top writers want to work at Marvel or at any comic book company. And artists want to work for comic book companies because their artwork now, they get it back. After the book is printed, they get their artwork back. And as you walk along across a comic book floor, you see how much original artwork goes for. So all that I'm trying to tell you is, in order to work for Marvel, you've got to, or for any comic book company, you've got to make sure you are a really good writer. Not a good amateur. They don't have time for that. You've got to be able to write a story as good as the ones that they're already buying, or they don't need you. Actually, you've got to write better stuff, or they'll just keep the people they have. And if you say to me, well, how do I know if my stuff is as good or bad? I don't know how to answer that. You yourself have to be the judge. And if you're good enough to work for the company, you've got to be good enough to be able to judge whether your work is as good as theirs or not. You know? All right. And, now wait, way back there. Yeah.
Well, I wrote a whole.
Oh, you asked one. I thought I saw another hand. Was it you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we'll get you later. Go ahead.
Okay. Did you go out and sit, have you gotten out into the real world already, or you're still waiting to get out?
Have I gotten out into the real world yet, or am I
Yeah.
still waiting to get out?
Yeah.
Well, I figure this is about as close to the real world as I'm ever going to get. No, I'm in the real world, I think. I don't know. I don't know even know what that means, you know. I go out to restaurants with my wife. I go to conventions. I work at an office. Yeah, I think I'm in the real world. I think I finally made the real world. Okay, yes.
Is there anything that, starting out, when you started out, that you wish you would have known then that you do know
Oh,
now?
yeah. When I started out, is there anything I wish I would have known then? I wish I would have known that it's possible to own the characters you create. That would have been nice. You know, it's funny, I get so much mail congratulating me on the fact that the Avengers will make more than $1 billion. And a lot of people think I'm getting the $1 billion. But yeah, that's the one thing. For instance, Bob Kane, who created Batman, he was smart enough, he said to DC Comics, which was then called National Comics, he said, I got this character Batman, I'll do it for you, but I want to own it. and they let him own it, and he made a lot of money on Batman. Very few people in the there was one other, Will Eisner, if you know of him. He did a strip called The Spirit, which was in the newspapers years ago, and he owned The Spirit. So whatever money that made, he got a good share of that. We never thought of that at Marvel, or at most of the places at the other companies. It never occurred to us that you even could own these characters. All you knew was you worked for a publisher, he paid you, and he paid you per page. Whatever pages you wrote, you got paid for, and that was it. And we thought we were lucky as hell. We had a paying job, and we were able to pay our rent. So that is one thing I wish I had known. Anything else? Back there, way, way in the back.
Being that you are the Stan Lee.
Can't hear you.
Being that you are, Stan Lee, what do you feel as though, or what did you want it to be? What did you want to be your biggest impact for your readers?
What did I want?
Well, like, what did you want to? What do you want to leave? As like, what are you most proud of?
Oh, what am I most proud of? What do I want to leave with the readers? I don't think of that very. I'll be honest with you. I don't want you to think I don't care about you. But I don't spend any time thinking what I'm going to leave for you guys. I just hope that the work I do will meet with favor if I do a TV show, or if I'm working on a movie, or if I'm writing something to be printed. I hope people will like it. But I'm not a guy who, maybe some people are like that, but I don't think, what'll I be remembered for 100 years from now? I don't care. I won't be here. Who cares? I can't understand these people who worry about stuff like that. I'd like to feel while I'm here now, people might enjoy what I'm doing, or it might be successful, and that's it. So I don't think of what I'm leaving for my readers. I think of what I'm doing for myself. I hope I'm doing well, and I'll get paid for it, and I'll get invited to a Comic-Con and have a meet and greet once in a while, which is kind of fun when I can hear what you're saying. Anybody who hasn't asked a question?
Right here.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of incredible things, and
I've done a lot of terrible things.
a lot of incredible things, and I was just curious if there was any particular character or story that you didn't think of that you really wish you had.
Oh, I'm sure there are a lot of them. Every time I read a story I didn't write, I wish I had written it. Yeah, I wish I had thought of some of the Dark Knight stories for Batman. I can't think of any Superman stories that I wish I had written. There was a company years ago called Crime Does Not Pay, publisher called Lev Gleason. They didn't last very long, but they did great stories. I used to read them, and I wished I had written some of those. There's a guy named Harvey Kurtzman who did a book called Frontline Combat. He also founded Mad magazine, but he was good at every type of thing. He worked for me for a while. He was a genius. I'm not a genius. Harvey was a genius. And I wish I could have written and drawn some of the things he did, but I don't spend much time, wishing I had done other things. I'm usually too busy worrying about what I'm going to do. Yes, sir.
I'm a special education teacher. Special education teacher with autism, and I've always loved Daredevil. So first of all, I wanted to thank you for creating a character like that's empowered, that has a disability, that got so big. But I was wondering if, when he was originally created, what the reaction to him was.
Interesting question. When Daredevil was originally created, my first thought was, I want to do a hero who's got a disability. And I thought deafness was a good one because most people are told when you lose your hearing, your other senses become a little bit sharper. And I thought I could have fun with that. But then I worried. I said, I'm going to make Daredevil a superhero with superpower, but he's deaf. Would deaf people resent that? Because obviously deaf people don't have superpowers, and would it seem like I'm being too ridiculous? Anyway, I did Daredevil, and we got more mail from deaf people and from organizations that cater to deaf people congratulating us on the Daredevil books and saying how much they enjoyed them and how good it was for the morale of deaf people. I couldn't believe it. I was thrilled. And I always loved the character Daredevil. I must admit I was disappointed in the movie. I think they should have done it differently. And I hope they make another Daredevil movie and do it the right way, because he's a great character. And there you go.
You're here.
Right here, yeah. See, I chose him because he's easy to walk through. I don't have to go that obstacle course there.
You've been cameos on like every single Marvel movie, like the Avengers, the Spider-Man, and Thor, like.
I missed 2 of them because I was out of town when they did them, and I'm ashamed of that.
Like, can you describe that experience? It's like, can you describe that experience, like being on set with all of that?
Oh,
Like,
can I describe the experience of being on set with all of that, whatever that is, when I do my cameos, right?
yeah, is that fun for you? I'm sure.
Is it fun? Man, you can't have more fun than that. It's very funny. I'm given a cameo, which is usually one line to say or something of the sort. And when I come on the set, they have a big trailer for me. You know, the trailers are these big wagons that the stars are in. They're air conditioned. They have kitchens and bathrooms and television. Here's your trailer, Mr. Lee. And I said, I got one line to say. Here's your trailer. And then I'm sitting in the trailer wondering what's going to happen next, and somebody will come in and say, we're ready for we're ready for makeup. What do you mean makeup? And I have to go to another wagon where there are 3 or 4 makeup people with barber chairs, and all the stars go in there and get their hair done and everything. And I'm sitting there with the stars of the movie, and I'm going to be there for 1 second, and nobody cares what I look like. But anyway, they go over my hair and they powder my face. Then they say, we're ready for wardrobe. And I don't even know, I might add, I never know what I'm going to do. They never tell me what my cameo is. So they say, we're ready for wardrobe. So I go in, and somebody gives me some clothes to wear. And I always say, like, they'll give me a pair of dungarees, let's say, and sneakers and a certain shirt. And I always say to them, why are you bothering dressing me? I've got these clothes at home. You only had to tell me what I'd wear, I'd bring it. No, you got to wear our clothes with. So I put on the clothes, and then at some point they say, we're ready for you now. So I come on the set, and the director tells me what I'm supposed to say and do. I don't really have to study the script, because considering I have one line, maybe eight words, it's not hard to remember. And I do it, and then I go back to my trailer, put on my own clothes, and I go home. And that's the whole episode. And of course, the amazing thing is, that's the only reason people to go to see the movie. Oh, wait, you think I'm joking? I'll tell you a funny thing. This, of course, I'm joking, but I think this is funny. The reason the Avengers made so much money is because of my commercial. My cameo is very brief. And if you close your eyes or take a deep breath or something, you might miss it. So what happened was, half of the people who went to the movie missed the cameo. And naturally they said, we got to buy another ticket and see it again so we can see the cameo. That's why the Marvel movies make money. And why they keep my cameo so short. I'm convinced of it.
Yeah.
Over there, I'm sorry, it's not that I'm mad at you, but he hasn't answered the question yet.
With being the owner of Power Entertainment, what's next for us as fans of yours to view?
At Power Entertainment? Oh, that's my little company. We're doing a lot of things. We have a movie in the works now starring a Chinese hero, which is, I think, going to be a big movie. It's being made in China and in America. There's never been a real serious Chinese superhero type of guy. And there has been? Oh, and it's made, and not just for China, I mean, it's for all around the world. So that's one movie we're doing. We're doing another movie with